Welcome back to another episode of Director's Cut. Well, this week I have the return of some very special guests that you know and love from the RAD world, RAD Entertainment, Mr. Tony Walters and the Herb Chick herself, Rebekah Herb. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us again, John. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, good to have the RAD world represented once again. And would you guys like to kind of introduce what director we're spotlighting this time?
Quentin Tarantino.
Woo! Yes, woo! Quentin Tarantino, one of the most prolific and probably polarizing and controversial. All the adverbs and the adjectives. I don't know. I didn't, go to school that much. But all those things. He makes just crazy, just brutal movies, and I love every single one of them. So I think, Tony, this was a long time coming that you and I have kind of discussed Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I don't honestly know why it took us so long to get here. I think it was because it was one that we knew we had in our pocket whenever we felt like doing it. So we were trying to do, something out of the norm, kind of waiting around maybe for Tarantino to come out with a new movie. He's got a movie he's shooting right now. It's going to be a while before we get to see it, so let's just talk about his library here.
Absolutely, and it's not just and that's a great point, because we did have those kind of ones in the back pocket, like a Quentin Tarantino, like a Kevin Smith. Unfortunately, I didn't have you on that one, but that was a lot of fun last week.
That's all right. I do want to. I need to do a Kevin Smith show sometime, because he is the reason why I wanted to be a filmmaker. So I really need to.
Well, that's funny, because Quentin Tarantino is the reason why I wanted to be a filmmaker. So this is great. I'm excited.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, it's all full circle, and I'm sorry, I was just pulling up the chat. We already got some HMM Films representation, and Dan Murphy, Christian is here, Jay from Classic Flicks, Psycho Cat. Great. So we got a chat going, guys. So before we dive into this crazy asshole that is Quentin Tarantino, I do want to show my special guest, because I didn't get to drink last week because I was on antibiotics, but no longer. I have a couple ladies with me. You're not the only one with a blonde today, Tony. I have a Naughty Nelly Golden Artesian Ale Pike Brewing. Thank you so much, Christian from Northwest Beverage, for hooking this one up. This is a golden ale. I'm not a huge fan of this style, but I figured it kind of looks like the Bride, so I try to stay on theme as much as possible. Do you guys have a special guest?
I do, yes. I have 312 from Goose Island, the Urban Wheat Ale. It is very delicious.
All right.
And like always, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Tony is back on the channel. Oh yeah, Ted from Cards here, and Ian from Bad Movie Night is also joining us as well. So awesome. So Quentin Tarantino, we're going to kind of talk not only about the films that he directed, but he has been so involved in everything else as well. So we are going to touch on the movies that he maybe didn't direct, but he wrote, because, you think of Quentin Tarantino and some of those films, you almost forget that he didn't direct some of them, but he was heavily involved, if not wrote them. He starred in a lot of them as well, but we'll get to those later. Let's start with the very first film on the timeline, which is...
The first film, or the first written movie? Sorry.
Let's go directed film.
I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. I was reading the chat. First movie on the list is Reservoir Dogs. This movie is my favorite Quentin Tarantino film. I'm gonna say that it's not his best movie, but it is my favorite of his movies. This movie it was my introduction to Tarantino. I love the soundtrack to this movie. I was super obsessed with AFI at the time, and they had Answer That and Stay Fashionable, which had like the same cover album artwork. I was just like, I surrounded myself with Tarantino films after this one. I watched this and then immediately jumped over to Pulp Fiction. But this movie was my introduction. I love this movie so much. It's a heist movie where you never see the robbery. And I think that that's independent filmmaking at its core. Like, how can we do this movie and do a jewelry heist robbery with no money? Let's just not show it. Let's just do the aftermath of that situation. Perfect.
It's talking in rooms about something that you never see, like the most important thing that they're all talking about. You see the pre-planning for it, and then you see the after planning for it, and it's just people talking in rooms wearing suits. It's exposition, it's dialogue, which when films are bogged down that way, you know, I get a little bit irritated, but he just pulled it off so well. And I'm going to agree with you. This is my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie as well. Rebekah, where does it fall for you?
It is not my favorite. I love it. Like, Quentin Tarantino can never go wrong. I love all of them, but for me, I think I was a little young to watch it for like the first time, and it fell a little bit lower on the list. Yeah, it's just not one that I.
It's not you. I know the movie that's your favorite, and when we get there, it'll make total sense.
Yeah, I mean, yes. But there's a reason. There's more for than what you would think, aside from like you being my friend and you knowing what I'm into. But yeah, Reservoir Dogs is good. It's great. It's great. I mean, the soundtrack is amazing. I love the character names. Like, it's very clever. But yeah, it just falls lower on the list for me.
The soundtrack to this movie is something that plays very regularly in the comic book store.
All the
time. I have this on vinyl, and we spin it pretty regularly.
But it's a little warped. So every once in a while, I'll just be like,
it gets a little twangy.
It gets a little twangy,
yeah. That just adds some character to it. But I mean, talking about characters, this movie had unforgettable characters. I mean, it kind of made, you know, Steve Buscemi. I won't say it made Harvey Keitel, because Harvey Keitel was around for so long. But you know, Quentin Tarantino as an actor is absolutely fantastic in this. Yeah. You know, Mr. Pink. Is he Mr. Pink, or is he? No, he's Mr. Shit. He's Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mr. Brown. No, we have Steve Buscemi as Mr. Pink. We have James Marsden is just fucking standout. I cannot, like, I work in a store. My job is based in the store, so they play Stuck in the Middle with You, and I have to stop what I'm doing and start kind of dancing around, and people look at me like I'm fucking crazy, but it's just the soundtrack to this is such a character as well as the other characters. And if these people were not written as well as they were, and they weren't performed as well as the performances were from Harvey Keitel and the Steve Buscemi and all that, this movie would not have worked at all. And I don't think any movie after that, Quentin Tarantino wise, would have happened or would have worked either.
Right. And like Tim Roth in this movie, absolutely, he plays it very over the top. I feel like
he plays everything over the top.
Yeah, but it works so well.
It's so Tim Roth. Like, that's just how he is. So it was a perfect casting.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And you know, him being this, you know, the cop in the whole situation, and you get to see him. The part where he tells the story, where he has to believe that he's a criminal and tell that story, and with you know, it goes from him learning the story to then sitting at the table telling the story, then the story actually coming to life, and him like being in the bathroom with these cops. Like, that's my favorite part of the whole movie. I love the way that story is told from three different perspectives, to the point of, by the end of that story, you believe the freaking story, and you know it's not true.
I love that everyone's an asshole too. There's no protagonist really, because they are all bank robbers. They're all bad guys. But I mean, the closest thing to a protagonist you have is a Mr. Orange, which is Tim Roth, or Mr. White, who kind of comes around. But that, you know, and this is of course
he's a good guy, but he's a criminal. Like Mr. White's not a bad person. He's just a criminal.
Right. And everyone.
Sorry. I love Steve Buscemi's, like, the fact that he's the professional, and he's like, I'm not the only fucking professional. The whole movie, like, I love it so much.
And in the context of their group, he's 100% right. He's the one that's like trying to make sure that everyone's doing what they're doing. You know, Mr. Harvey Keitel tells Tim Roth's character his name and all that, and that freaks Mr. Pink out. He's like, "Don't tell me your fucking name. I don't want to know your name. I'm not going to tell you mine." So he's the only one that's kind of acting like as he should. And I think it starts out with like 7 people, and we lose I think Mr. Blue and Quentin Tarantino's character right off the bat, kind of off screen. So it is who plays Mr. Blue? It's some kind of like older gentleman.
Edward Bunker.
Okay, so not really known for much, I assume.
Right.
Yeah. I just absolutely love. And then the ending to this really is what kind of puts the cherry on top. It's just literally everyone, you know, spoiler alert, everyone dies, and it's just so fantastic that this kind of group of assholes, and you start caring for certain people, you start rooting against other people, and the people that you kind of think are going to make it out of it, you know, you think maybe a Mr. Blonde will, or you think Mr. White and everything, he's the one that pulls the trigger on his friend, kind of the arc of the story. So I love the ending, I love the dialogue. That's why Reservoir Dogs will always probably be my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie.
Agreed.
Becca, any closing thoughts on Reservoir Dogs?
No, sadly not. No, still on the bottom of the Tarantino totem pole.
That's fair. What do we got next?
It's not on the bottom. There are way worse movies on this list.
But wait, hold on. Before we
like what he has, like, his movies.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm just saying.
No.
Well, the next movie on this list is his worst movie. Well.
Oh my God.
Second worst movie.
What? Are you serious?
Go.
Are we going? We're going right? Are we going up? We're
Yeah.
going up.
Just Jackie Brown.
Pulp Fiction.
Huh? Oh, sorry. I skipped Pulp Fiction.
I was going to say, I'm like, what the hell?
Sorry.
My heart.
I always think Jackie Brown. I was just talking about this earlier today. I always think Jackie Brown came out before Pulp Fiction because it's such a letdown for the, like, after Pulp Fiction comes out and it's so amazing, then going to Jackie Brown being his next movie.
Jackie Brown.
It's not a bad movie. It's just the worst. It's just the worst of his movies.
No.
See, I was just talking on Twitter with someone about this, and someone, you know, I asked what people's favorite and what people's least favorite was, and for me, it's so razor thin because, like kind of Rebekah said, there's no bad movie, or you know, you did too, but there's no bad Quentin Tarantino films. There are better ones, but you know, certain directors have great movies and then they have absolute dumpster fires, and his catalog is so razor thin. What goes above what? It's really hard to pick. So let's talk about Pulp Fiction a little bit. Where does this one? We'll start with Rebekah on this one. Where does Pulp Fiction lie for you?
This is my second favorite Tarantino film. I love it. Absolutely love it.
It's a fantastic movie. Like Pulp Fiction is great from beginning to end.
Yeah.
It's a movie that still, when you watch it, you can kind of pick out new little things in it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The storyline, like it's a movie that, you know, I probably watch Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs at least once a year, and every time I watch Pulp Fiction,
it's
the story. Well, as the story unfolds, I'm always like, oh yeah, this happened before this scene. Like like when you start to put the pieces in your head together. Like it's a movie that, as much as I've seen it,
clever way to tell a story.
As much as I've seen it, it's still the way the story is told still keeps it very interesting and really fresh.
Yeah, it's this was my introduction to Quentin Tarantino, like I think it is for a lot of people. And you know, I think this came out in what, 94? I want to say 95?
94.
94. So, I mean, I couldn't have been, you know, I think I was 11, 12 years old. So I saw it way too young. And I didn't, of course, you know, get it really the first time. It's very confusing. It's disjointed, but he kind of trailblazed that kind of storytelling. We've seen that to this day where, you know, all the way up to, you know, I've been reviewing a lot of Fear the Walking Dead, and they're doing that, this whole timeline thing. But I think that was perfected by Quentin Tarantino, and he kind of wrote the blueprint for other peoples to follow that.
For sure. Completely agree. For Pulp Fiction, I was a little bit older. I was like between 7th and 8th grade, but luckily I had an older brother that kind of like held my hand through this whole new world of cinema that I was so unfamiliar with, because I come from a very conservative family where my mom didn't let me watch certain movies. It was like really, really, really strict. So, you know, come middle school, I had this cool older brother that showed me these like new movies and like kind of taught me how to respect them. And it was great. It was so great.
Yeah. How old were you when you first saw Pulp Fiction, Tony?
I mean, I probably was 10.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction around the same time. So in a similar situation, I had an older cousin that introduced me to these movies. Reservoir Dogs was his favorite movie, so we watched that. I think there was was there a Reservoir Dogs video game?
Oh God. If there is, I want to play it.
I'm gonna do a little Googling over here on the side.
Yeah. God, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, you get to like an RPG, you get to pick which Mr. color you want to be. That would be fantastic. And this is the start of
there was a video game that came out in 2006. Sorry,
no way. That's awesome. All right, I got to look that up. But this was the movie that started the kind of almost creepy love affair that he had with Uma Thurman. I mean, she is. There's so many you think of iconic movies, and this of all time, you have to put Pulp Fiction in the top 5, if not in the top 3, for imagery. I mean, everyone was ripping off the dancing. Everyone was doing the Jules monologue with Frank Whaley. Him reciting the Bible passage. It's like I'm having
Ezekiel.
a huge. What's that?
Isn't it Ezekiel?
Ezekiel. There's just so many things. I mean, John Travolta was in a really weird place in his career when this was happening, and I think this kind of, at least for a little bit, rekindled, resparked his career. I mean, this is what put Samuel L. Jackson on the map, right?
Oh, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, this movie takes the guy from Grease and makes him a badass. You're like, oh, we're gonna take the guy from Grease is gonna be in this crime movie? Sure, okay. Yeah. And then Uma Thurman, introduced into the movie by her feet, like classic Tarantino fashion.
Yeah.
She's introduced in the movie.
He has a fetish for feet.
Right. But she's introduced by a story about her feet before you even get to meet her. And then once we do meet her in the movie, it's a shot of her feet that introduces her.
It's
Right.
so great.
Yeah, and it has.
I know. And the it's just personality and way of talking, like with the whole the awkward silence thing with Mia and Travolta's character, I don't remember his name, to Bruce Bruce Willis's girlfriend and her wanting a pot belly, not being pregnant, but she wanted a pot belly because she thought that was cute. It's little details to it that make it so great.
I think it's a metaphor for her wanting to have a baby.
No, she even flat out says, I don't want a baby, I just want a pot belly. She thinks that they're cute. She's foreign and it was a thing.
I like that they never showed her and Marcellus Wallace together. I don't know. I always thought that was
one shot. There is one shot, and it's you miss it if you don't. He answers a phone call, and she's sitting next to him. That's the only shot.
That's right. Yeah.
And she's wearing a weird hat, and if you and big sunglasses, and if you not pay attention, you don't even know she's there. But yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
I noticed it for the first time, the last time I watched this movie. That's why I'm saying every time I watch it, I pick up something different.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you're pointing out those. She pointed out something. I have the GIMP, forever burned into my brain. There's so many things. There's something for everybody, unless you're a old grandma or something that you could find to like about Pulp Fiction. It just it took the world by absolute storm. It changed cinema. I mean, it was almost like. And I might be, this might be hyperbole a little bit, but it was like the Nirvana of film, in my opinion. It came out, it was an atom bomb, and it changed the status quo of Hollywood. And I just, it's great. It's it's a national treasure, in my opinion.
Completely agree.
Sorry, I was drinking. Okay. Anything else about Pulp Fiction?
It's awesome, and the watch in the ass is a pretty great scene too.
Oh my god! I forgot Christopher Walken.
I love that. Oh my god!
You shoved it up his ass. Oh man! All right, so now I think we segue to obviously Tony's least favorite film in the Tarantino catalog, and that's Jackie Brown.
It's my second least favorite film.
Okay.
Jackie Brown it's number 2 from the bottom.
Got it. Well, I just refreshed. I'll kick off Jackie Brown because I just refreshed watching it yesterday, because I think I only watched bits and pieces long time ago, and at the time I was just like, yeah, it's like you said, it is not the best or most memorable by any means, but there is some hidden gems in Jackie Brown that I absolutely love. I think that this is his most charming film. I think that this is kind of, there's still brutal violence and there's still over sexualized things. But for a Tarantino film, it has a surprising amount of charm to it. And oh my God, Bridget Fonda was just absolutely gorgeous in this film. And I'm just like, whoo, I had this crazy crush reignited from when I was a wee John. Like, man, I forgot about Bridget Fonda. But Samuel L. Jackson is just such a disgusting, scummy, amazing character in Odell in this movie. I think his performance is underrated, as well as it's fun to see Robert De Niro just being this like disgusting, schlubby henchman, kind of like a Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction.
For sure. I
love his impatience. Like he's so annoyed by everything, and then like obviously that gets the best of him. And yeah, he's really great. He's just like a slum thing. Like I like him too.
Yeah. He's pretty much the only saving grace for the movie for me. I thoroughly enjoyed his character a lot. For the most part, I found the movie to be kind of boring. But I watched this movie for the first time about 5 years ago. It was the first time that I've seen it. It's the only time I've seen it. And I did experience it via Netflix on my phone in a hotel room. So maybe I didn't have like quite the greatest viewing experience.
For me, Jackie Brown was like my third Tarantino movie. And like I said, like I had this older brother that I like really admired, and he showed me this whole new world of cinema. So I was like still riding that wave. And so like, oh yeah, like this is great too. And I really love Jackie's character. Like she's
absolutely
a very powerful woman character that like decides to take charge of her own life. And I just think it's so great. The whole story with the little like love thing at the end with the or like agent or whatever. Is
Charles Brolin, Max Cherry. That's the best name ever, Max Cherry.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking through this and completely spaced that Michael Keaton's in this movie,
and he's so forgettable in this film. This is so not a Michael Keaton role, and when I was watching it, he doesn't go over the top Michael Keaton at all, which was a little bit disappointing. But the thing that stands out to me about this film, which is kind of funny, is it's such a low stakes movie. It's a heist movie, but it's only like $500,000 between friends. It's just like the double crossing.
Damn it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like this asshole, this like ponytailed weirdo is like killing his friends just to make sure his money gets there from Mexico. So if you like say that premise out loud, and it's just hilarious. I think it's just a funny, low stakes kind of heist movie with a bunch of amateurs where, which that kind of was the theme of Tarantino films up into that point, because the first three films, Reservoir Dogs, again, a bunch of just complete screw ups, very bad bank robbers. They're horrible at their job. And I'm surprised they didn't kind of tie it in, because Robert De Niro, he went to time for being a bank robber, and a bad one because he got caught. So, maybe he could have been part of that original crew. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that just as far as you had Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, like the direction that Tarantino was going at the time, Jackie Brown was just a bit of a letdown in the sense of, just where his career was going. Which might be why there's a 6-year gap between that movie and the next one.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, wow, I can't believe it was Jackie Brown then nothing for, almost half a decade. But yeah, and like Rebekah said, just before we move on, Pam Grier was just fantastic. She was sexy. She was just oozed like, and like we said about Reservoir Dogs, the big star of this film was the soundtrack also. I mean, this thing oozed with class and style, and it had a great Motown kind of feel to it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Jackie Brown. Not the worst, not the best though.
So Becca, do you want to introduce the next movie?
My all-time, even like movies in general.
Oh.
This was the first Tarantino movie that I was introduced to, and it changed my life forever. Kill Bill. Holy freaking shit. Oh. Uma Thurman is my spirit animal. I love her so much, and there's no words. I can't. I love it so much.
This was the first Tarantino movie that I saw in theaters. I remember the hype for this movie because it was the first movie Tarantino had done in a really long time. And I had, seen Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. So I knew, and it was the very first time in my life, I think outside of maybe Kevin Smith movies, because Kevin Smith movies were very clearly the same guy making his movies, I feel like.
Right, yeah.
Like, you know, they were the Jay and Silent Bob movies, you know. But this was the first time that I was like, wait, there's like directors, like people make more than one movie. Like it was just like, I don't know, 2003. I was in high school and I was like, wait, the guy who made that movie and that movie's also making this movie. Let's go watch this movie. Like,
see, for me, it all started in like 5th grade when Lord of the Rings came out, and I saw it in the theaters. I was like, oh, like this is what you can do with movies? Like, right. Oh my gosh, mind blown. And then fast forward to Kill Bill when it came out, and it was just like the whole other spectrum of movies that I just was never ever familiar with, except for like, you know, Walker Texas Ranger, like few little like subtle action stuff that my mom let me watch. It was like the whole other thing. I'm just like, oh, you can do this with movies? Like, oh my gosh. And that was really the first time that I realized that there are directors, because my brother would always say, oh, this is a Tarantino movie. I'm just like, well, what does it mean to be a Tarantino movie? And then he just like opened that up, and I'm just like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to be a director. I want to make movies like Quentin Tarantino. And I was absolutely hooked since then, especially with Kill Bill. I don't know how many times I've seen it. Oh my goodness. I cosplayed. I couldn't afford the yellow jumpsuit because it's really expensive, but I already had like the outfit pieces for volume 2 Kill Bill, so I cosplayed her, and I came across Gogo Yubari. I ran up to this random girl, and I was like, technically, this does not make sense because I killed you in volume 1, but will you take a picture with me? And she's just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this film just went nuts. I mean, it is a roller coaster ride. It's like watching an actual comic book, and not a comic book movie, because comic book movies are now, you know, your Infinity Wars and all that. That's not what I mean. It's not. It was
live action anime.
Exactly, and it was so self-aware and so much fun, even though it was just so brutal. Lucy Liu was great. Just the characters and the story of this was just the revenge story of this poor woman. And you know, leading up to the next film and everything, it was just one of. I won't say it's a perfect film, even though you know, it's so much fun and it doesn't let off the gas, but it bogs down a little bit every once in a while for me at least, but it is a ton of fun. And it's, you know, she does it better. I know there's like some web series where it's just like where you pit two kind of iconic characters against each other, like a death match or something like that. I want to see the Bride versus Michonne, and I think the Bride would kick Michonne's ass.
Oh, hell fucking yes, she would. I love Michonne. Oh my goodness. But yeah, but she has a Atari sword. It would cut Michonne's sword in half.
This has turned into a whole different kind of show. Yeah, absolutely. Who are the? I mean, just the very first scene, or the very first fight. I think it was with Copper or whatever her name was, but it was. Yeah. Vivica A. Fox. That scene was nuts. She's going to like a
for her kid.
Yeah, a mother's house, and she's just fucking her up and kills her right when her kids are in the other room. And yeah. I just remember watching that scene with my wife, and I'm just like, she just kind of looks at me just like, okay, so this is, you know, your movie night. Next week we're going to pick The Notebook. But I mean,
this movie still did like moments like that, like that fight sequence, like her like in the truck, like move your big toe.
Yes!
Like the battle with the battle with what do they call them? The Crazy 88? Yeah, Crazy 88 battle is fucking amazing.
With the music. Yeah. Oh, and then she comes across Gogo Yubari, and then you know, you get little like a quick like 10-second scene of Gogo's like random craziness like backstory, right? Which is
like the
so
anime,
great.
like the anime.
No, that's Lucy Liu.
Sorry.
I'm an Asian character. No,
careful, Tony.
She was like drunk at the bar with this crazy guy with horrible face, and
with horrible face.
And he said something about like a sexual thing, and she's like, oh, okay. And then she stabs him like right in the penis. Yeah. And then she comes out with her big like mace with the, I don't know what it's called. And then she like does the gun or the button, and it has a little blades on it. She like does it around her neck. It's so great.
I mean, and just hats off to Emma Thurman. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, although he was strangely in love with her and just kind of shot her that way, he put her through a meat grinder in these films. I mean, she had to do some crazy ass shit.
Yeah, she got in a car wreck, which I know that just came out like this past year. You know, that was like such a secret story. And I've always like said, like, I realize how much of an asshole Tarantino is.
Yeah.
But holy shit, I want to work with him so bad. Like, it would be worth it. Like, just to like be under his wing and learn from him and be able to work with somebody like that, because there's always going to be people like that. So to be able to like, you know, grit your teeth and work with somebody like that, I think would be really cool experience.
He's the kind of actor that forces authentic performances out of his actors, whether they want to give it or not, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, Tarantino has made a lot of actors who they are. Yeah. Like, his list is
pushes
pretty
them
long.
out of the comfort zone and really like gets their talent out of them. Like, it's
For sure.
And the thing, like, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but when I was kind of rewatching a lot of these films, just seeing the, you know, produced by Harvey Weinstein, it just made it a little gross.
It does suck. But you also got to think these movies are also produced by Danny DeVito, and that's awesome.
That's true. Yeah, the Weinstein creeps and then Danny DeVito. But yeah, all right. And so this kind of bleeds into, you know, pun intended, bleeds into Kill Bill Volume 2, because I think that was the direct follow-up, right? So I mean, the only thing huge, you know, the big mix-up, you know, and I want to say I love James Marsden's character, because if there was one sympathetic character that wasn't, you know, the bride, Emma Thurman, or whatever. I think it was him, because he was just kind of waiting for death. He's just like, we did a shitty, horrible thing. She deserves all the revenge. So just go on and get it. To the point where you almost think that she's going to spare his life, and he winds up eating it kind of worse than most people.
Like Michael Matt, like
he would spare her life, but still, like, he's a creep. He's going, as much as he hasn't really talked to his brother Bill, like, he's going to do what's right by his brother, because what he sees is this woman that his brother was madly in love with, that was a part of the team, just run off and get pregnant by somebody else, you know, and then, you know, we find out, like, the whole thing. Spoiler alert. I
feel like you keep calling Michael Madsen somebody else's name.
I do too. I just thought of it. What was I calling him now?
James somebody, I feel like.
James Marsden?
Yeah, you did it twice now. You did it twice, and I was like, are you saying, like, I know what character, but that is not him.
Yeah, no, James Marsden isn't that Cyclops from the X-Men series? He's not in the films. Especially not in Reservoir Dogs. Shit, yeah.
I don't know.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah, Michael Madsen, his character. But and then of course this is the first time we get to see, you know, the legend himself, the kung fu master himself, David Carradine, probably, you know, very inebriated, as David Carradine was. This was one of his last productions, I think, before he kind of checked out.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, just from the industry, or he died
from life. Yeah.
It was so lightly put that I
really. Rebekah, do you not know the story?
No, I guess I don't.
Well, you can either whisper it, or, you know, I mean, who cares? This is a rated R show. I get. Yeah, he died from erotic asphyxiation.
Oh,
is that real?
Yeah, I'm totally serious. Yeah, David Carradine choked himself out while choking himself out. Yeah, so I mean, David Carradine, again, you know, as much as Pulp Fiction is a national treasure, so is drunk ass David Carradine.
That I think I knew that.
I think he died, like, literally, I think it was only a couple months, if not less, than when the movie was released.
It's 5 years after, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
He died in 2009.
All right.
He was in an Even Stevens episode.
Did not know that. The more you know. All right.
And he played like what he normally plays, like he was like a sensei to Steven or whatever. Not obviously the last name's is Stevens, but whatever his face is played.
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
I was gonna say Frankie Muniz. I think I'm on the wrong show.
Shia LaBeouf was his young grasshopper.
Ah, all right. Well, all right. Anything about to wrap up the Kill Bill franchise, not just Kill Bill.
I'll wrap it up by saying this. I think that Volume 2 was kind of a letdown, but
yeah.
I enjoyed the movie, but I felt like Volume 1's really kick-ass, and Volume 2's like, here's all the story.
No.
With how, with the pace that Volume 1 sets up, when you go into Volume 2, you're just like, oh, it's just going to be her hanging out with this old dude with a beard.
No, because you get her taking the ice and squishing it, and you get her, going through her lessons with her master, and then doing like the board thing. Do you know how many times I would practice that at a younger age, like trying to punch through something at like 3 inches, and then the 5-finger death punch? You know how many times I did that on my brother?
I do it on my kids all the time.
I think Volume 1 has a lot more iconic moments than Volume 2.
I tend to agree with you. Although I liked seeing David Carradine.
I'll watch them both back to back. Like if I watch Volume 1, I'll watch Volume 2 to like complete the story. Like I like them as a whole, and Tarantino considers them one movie.
Right.
So, like I do like both of them, but I think that when I saw Volume 2 in theaters, I was let down.
Well, it has that whole like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows type thing where now that they're both released, you do watch them together and it is a complete one film. And that's how I feel Kill Bill Volume series is as well. So yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I remember, waiting, because we saw Kill Bill Volume 1 and it ended on such a crazy high. And then there was a little bit of a time in between, and then the anticipation it did kind of dropped off because I don't know. I think Volume 1 ended on the Lucy Liu fight, right? And that was so much fun. And it was
fight, and then the lady in the trunk.
Yeah.
And get like that whole bit. But Volume 2 ends up with her finding Phoebe and finally killing Bill, which you think that's what you were rooting for, but then you ended up being like really sad about it.
Right.
And then you get them like having their life together, and they're in the hotel watching a cartoon that I grew up watching, which was really, really cool. Like Crows, like the old school one, and they're hiding in the radio to trick those people. And I
have no idea what you're talking about.
And it's like such a great payoff to what Beatrix went through in Volume 2. And speaking of which, my very first email address was Beatrix Kiddo.
Of course, I know that.
Why do I think I knew that?
So when everybody says like, "Oh, like my first email address is so embarrassing," not mine.
Yahoo Messenger back in the day.
Yes.
Yahoo Messenger. That's why I know that.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Funny. That's really funny.
Well, the thing was, it's just like, even though they were such like exciting action set pieces, you always kind of felt bad because, besides maybe the Cottonmouth fight, or I don't know, I got to stop saying their names because I don't remember. But the fight with Lucy Liu, like she was, that was just cool, and she was a dick, and she died, and that was fine. But it was the like, you almost felt for Vivica A. Fox's character because her kids are in the other room. You felt for Michael Madsen, not James Marsden's character. Because he was just such a kind of a loser, and he kind of accepted things and kind of wanted to move on. And then like you said with the David Carradine, when she does confront Bill, that is like a heart-wrenching moment because you could tell they obviously love each other, and it kind of was a spurn kind of thing, and that's where it all started. So it was like very exciting, but it also had those kind of heartstring moments where you felt bad for liking that a mother just got murdered in front of her children. But yeah, Kill Bill series was absolutely amazing, and that completely re-sparked Quentin Tarantino coming off of Jackie Brown, going to those, and that kind of set him back up into the upper echelon. So he followed that up with
his worst movie, Death Proof.
Death Proof.
How many times have you seen Death Proof?
Several. I own it.
It's so bad.
No!
It is so bad.
The one with the car.
Yeah,
and,
the one with the car. Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
And Kurt Russell's awesome in it, and the car is awesome, and the fighting
and
is
the
awesome.
Girls are cute and
but all the girls sitting around that damn table, and the camera's just spinning for like 20 fucking minutes. It is so obnoxious.
Maybe like you now, it probably finds it really, really, really annoying. But
Dude,
you back then,
and it's
probably
the same
really,
movie.
really
It's the same movie twice. It's like here's all these girls, and then Kurt Russell kills them all, and then here's all these girls again, and then they kill him. It is stupid.
Tell us how you really feel, Tony.
It's my favorite movie on the list. Like, I like Jackie Brown enough to not hate it. I fucking hate this movie.
Wow. See, I'm completely in the middle here, and I, you know, whatever. But I thought that it was fun the way it's shot, but you know, Planet Terror is definitely the superior grindhouse
because Planet Terror is so damn cool.
Yeah.
But pairing it up with this fucking movie was awful.
It just takes so long to get going. And you're right, the girls are cute and the dialogue's fun, and I like the way it's shot. But as you could see, like throughout the film, like there's like those really bad edits, like where, you know, it looks like an 8-year-old's editing it, where it's cutting people off in the middle of sentences and everything. But then when it gets to the second group of girls, it's not so much, which was it kind of took me out, and it just got way too cute. There's a moment where it goes black and white, and then the editing gets cleaner and it looks more cinematic. And you know, I think he tried to fit too much stuff.
The grindhouse thing, you know, like to really make it heavy grindhouse.
Yeah.
Planet Terror did it better. Like, the best part of Planet Terror is when they cut out all the exposition, where he's like, I'm going to tell you my story, and then it like fucking glitches out, and like the tape reel catches on fire, and then it cuts back right to the action, and then just cut out. They did the reverse with Death Proof. They're like, let's just give you an entire movie of exposition that you don't give a shit about.
Yeah, and it's just a bunch of people talking bullshit about stuff you don't care about. But I do appreciate the style of it, and the dialogue is fun. It is snappy. Kurt Russell is great. I love Quentin Tarantino as the bartender in this, even though he doesn't have a ton to do. He's still just that kind of gross character, as he tends to be. And then but the deaths are brutal. The effects are brutal when they actually try. But yeah, it doesn't fall. It's definitely on the bottom tier for me, but it's not just like I didn't like hate the shit out of it or anything. I'm glad that I watched it.
I own it, but I hate it.
All right, moving on.
Cool. Let's move on to what I would say is Tarantino's best movie. Not my favorite, but I would say is his best movie is Inglourious Basterds. I love this movie so much. Like, it's like a technical achievement. Like, I think that this is his perfect film. Like, it's not as fun. It's very fun, but it's not as fun as I would say like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction is. Yeah. But it's still really fun and just an amazing. Yeah. It's just such an amazing movie.
When it first came out, like when it was first like hitting, like, you know, the trailers coming out and everything, I thought, like, really, a World War II movie, like Tarantino? No, like I really wasn't like as into it. But then once I saw, I'm like, okay, he's got me yet again. Like, totally freaking killed it. I mean, it feels like Tarantino, even though it's like technically like a war, you know, movie. But
the opening scene of this movie and the way that it builds tension it's my favorite opening probably to any movie ever. Like Christoph Waltz's character with like the sitting at the table with the milk and everybody's hiding under the floor, and like that conversation, the way that conversation goes, and it's completely like it's all subtitled, and the whole time you're just on the edge of your seat, like you can like. It doesn't even reveal that there's people under the floor for, you know, like 10 or 15 minutes into the scene. Right. And the tension is still so high. And then once you get that reveal, it just increases it so much. I saw this movie sitting in the bed of a truck. And like usually drive-in theaters, I mean, there's some chatter and people talking and whatever, and drinking and whatnot. It was just silence. And like, you could just, I don't know. It was just like the atmosphere in that, like on the drive-in was just like everybody was on the edge of their seat or car.
I 100% agree. They like literally, I never went to film school, but they should teach the opening sequence of this film. If it's like tension, how to shoot tension week in film school, they should literally teach this. Maybe they do. And this is exactly how you build tension. It's two people in a room with this MacGuffin, and it's just nail biting. I was like sweating. I was turning it. I think I had it up on like max volume because I didn't want to miss any intricacy that was going on, because there is a lot of intricacies in this scene. You know, there's subtle little noises. There's, you know, coughs. There's just inflections of tone in their voices. It's just perfect. I mean, that in itself, if that was a short film, that would probably be one of my favorite things that he's ever done. But the rest of it is a ton of fun. You know, it is grounded, but it is so, these are not characters, they're caricatures. Brad Pitt is just so over the top. Eli Roth, the bear Jew, come on. Mike Myers, one of the best cameos of all time. You don't even fucking know it's Mike Myers until you know, you see the credit roll. It's so much fun. Sam Levine, you know, Schmodown participants in this. The Inglorious One. Yeah. It's just absolutely a fantastic film. It's just, you know, it's not my favorite of, like you said, it's not my favorite of all time of his, just because I think other things like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are just, I don't know.
Tarantino.
Yeah.
When you think of Tarantino movie, you think Pulp Fiction, you think Reservoir Dogs. Like, I could even throw Kill Bill into that scenario. Inglourious Basterds is not necessarily a Tarantino film, even though there is so much of him in it. It is like his, in my mind, it's his perfect movie. There's tons of iconic moments in this. I love, like, you know, like skinning Nazis, like the whole, like the three versus three thing, like how he gets caught in that whole scenario. Like, that's another tension building scene that's amazing. Just gunning, just, you know, kicking in the doors to the damn theater and gunning down, Hitler. It's like absolutely amazing. Like, when that scene happened, just like, well, that's a different take.
Yeah, and it's just a close up of his face getting blown off by Eli Roth of all people, which is so incredible. And it's funny because Hitler's not even the main protagonist or antagonist of this movie.
Yeah, I think this is like my introduction, I think possibly too, to Christoph Waltz, who became one of my favorite actors, and I started going through and seeing all the other stuff that he'd done. Like, he's such a fantastic actor and plays such a great villain in this movie.
I think that was the first introduction to a lot of people. I mean, this movie, another, you know, again, we've said this, but Tarantino puts people on the map as far as actors go. Christopher Waltz definitely got put on the map by this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Rebekah?
Probably, this is like so fuel on the things that you guys are talking about, but I really, really enjoyed Brad Pitt's character, and especially when he like goes undercover and he's trying to talk with an accent.
Right, well, this was a French, right, or something like that.
Yes.
Wait.
It's really, really, really great.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely.
All right. What is up next?
Next we get into some movies that Becca hasn't seen.
Oh no! Are you gonna mute, or are you just gonna kind of grin and bear it here?
I'm still debating, but I do want to like justify myself.
We're gonna get to some spoilers here in a second.
I know. Remind me on when they came out, then I can like really justify.
You want to justify yourself? Yeah, in 2012. You've got 6 years to watch this movie.
Here's the thing.
Okay, here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
I can cut you slack on the Hateful Eight, maybe. That's still been 3 years.
No,
it's been 2.5 years.
Hateful Eight. I'm that one. I should not be cut slack because it's 3 years ago. But okay,
it's been 3 years already. Jesus.
Well, it was December of 2015, so it's like 2.5.
Okay.
Feels like that just came out.
To justify myself, really, 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 really quickly. Okay, so I've always wanted to be like in the film industry and be a director and an actress and things like that. And right after high school, like when I graduated, I was like into the whole partying scene and drugs and things like that. And I had lost myself for darn near like.
I get where you're going.
Like,
oh, here you go. You're going sympathy route. You're going sympathy points. See the fucking movies.
And so I literally like I didn't watch any movies. I didn't do like crap of what I was truly passionate about. So there's a lot of movies that I have yet to catch up on and see. So
I'm gonna cut out the sympathy. I'm gonna cut out the sympathy. John, when did we decide to do this show?
What?
When did we decide to do a Tarantino show? What day? Was it?
Yeah.
You had like 5 days to watch this damn movie.
Dude, hey, wasn't the first when I said, "Hey Tony, I want to do a director's show and spotlight stuff," weren't you like, "Yeah, Tarantino"? Like that was like,
it was my idea.
She was there. I was like, Tarantino show. Hey, you've got 5 days to watch.
I don't have the internet.
Okay, so I don't want to hear 5 years ago I had this little kitten that would come around my house and I put out this little cup of milk and then he stopped coming around one day and no, go see some Tarantino films, yo.
All right, let's jump into Django though.
Okay,
let's talk about this movie. I saw this movie in theaters.
Really, because I'm having just fun doing this.
I saw this movie in theaters with some friends, and the row of women behind me. I just want to throw this out there. There were 2 women with all their kids, like little kids.
Oh God!
And these women must have been thinking, "I love Jamie Foxx." I think that's what they were thinking.
Yeah,
It's not even on for like 15 minutes, and the whole row gets up and walks out of the theater.
Yeah.
That's the best.
It was great. It was great. Like,
I don't know what those first 15 minutes are, but
there's a lot. Just a lot of. It's actually
I can imagine though.
It's actually just kind of a lot of. It's kind of a lot of language in the first opening, but because
the first part is the whole slave trade.
Yeah, it's a slave trade thing. Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, I can call you back when we're done.
Well, I mean, we are going to talk about stuff like Dusk Till Dawn and True Romance and all that too. So, yeah, if you do want to exit for just a few minutes and then rejoin us, Rebekah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm such a.
It's cool.
I'll be back.
I'll wave you back in.
Hey, here's your tiny violin. You take that in the corner and watch some Tarantino films. I'm just kidding, Rebekah. All right. So what? Yeah. Real quick, we'll give her some time to kind of exit. But the thing about Quentin Tarantino that is so great is, like we said, is the quotability of his films. But they're not things that we could quote. We can't say. My favorite quote in Pulp Fiction is,
I know exactly what your quote is.
Yes. I can't say it
earlier, but I was like, I'm not going to say it.
I can't say it. You can't say it. None of us can say it. And that's the shittiest thing, because they're just so not safe for work or not safe for public or private. You can't say any of these things, and this bastard gets away with it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Totally can we talk about Django now?
Yeah. But Django is another one of those movies that's just like, I don't know, man. This movie is just awesome from beginning to end. Like, I didn't really know what to expect, I think, going into this. Like, with Inglourious Bastards, I think I at least had somewhat of an idea of what kind of movie to expect. I didn't really know what to expect with Django, outside of that it was a spaghetti Western, and I love Westerns in general. So, Tarantino doing a spaghetti Western, I was very into that idea. And he produced a movie, or brought like this Japanese movie over to the U.S., and it's called like something Western Django, like Tasuki Western Django.
I don't remember either.
Like and that movie's like, it's so awesome, and you could tell that this, like, he kind of ripped that movie off. He was like, let's take that movie, but like set it like in the slave trade, and just kind of do that, but like, make it really heavy his own. And he did it really, really well. I love this movie. I love all the actors in this movie. Like, I mean, Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, absolutely fantastic.
I was really worried about Jamie Foxx being in this movie. Especially leading this movie, because I think I just came off of, I don't remember exactly which one came out first, but I think maybe Horrible Bosses came out first, and his like little cameo in that, I guess, I mean, it's a little more than a cameo, is great. Motherfucker Jones. Yeah. Everybody now. Yeah, he's absolutely great in that. And then I'm like, oh wait, okay, so he can be good, but maybe in small doses. And then he just fucking blew me away with Django.
Right. I think that when Jamie Foxx is super passionate, he can be a really, really good actor.
Sure. And Ray and stuff. Yeah.
Right. I think that he can pull off. I think he's a fantastic actor if maybe just given direction by the right person.
Yeah.
Because, clearly not so much in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
To be fair, no one was good in that movie.
You know, yeah, exactly. But like, you know, take Jamie Foxx, you know, I mean, just in Baby Driver, you know, recently, he was absolutely awesome in that movie. Like, I think Jamie Foxx is a really great actor, so he didn't necessarily deter me or anything, or like, I wasn't really too worried going into this. But yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio's character though kind of stood out a lot for me, especially now. Like after the movie came out, and you hear about like the story about how he actually cut his hand in that scene. You know, and he like wiped his blood on her face and all that stuff. Like that was just he cut his hand in the scene and just kept going with it.
Yep.
Some pretty awesome DiCaprio stuff there. Some great cameos in this movie, you know.
Well, I love that it was like a buddy cop movie too, for a good portion of it between him and Christoph Waltz. And Christoph Waltz is a good guy in this, and it's nice to see him being able to pull that off too, because he is such a good villain.
Yeah. Seeing him play a good guy, like when they go to the bar and they like, you know, have a couple of pints, like that's like one of those scenes that sticks out in my head of, you know, because they kill all those dudes and they're like, let's just have a beer and wait for the sheriff and be like, hey, let me just explain to you what happened. Like, I love that. But Jonah Hill has a small cameo. That's fantastic.
That scene alone was like, I remember, because I didn't see it right away. I actually watched it maybe like a year after it came out. And I remember, you know, working graveyards and stuff like that. And some of my employees would come up and show me just random YouTube videos or whatever. This is way before I was doing anything like this. And they just kept showing me that Jonah Hill scene. And I would be laughing my ass off. And it's just so not politically correct. You know, to put it into context, it's basically a bunch of people in the KKK, but they made it in a way where it was hilarious and you feel bad for laughing, but it's so fucking
well, they just kind of made them all kind of bumbling idiots. And, you know, they kind of like turned them into Three Stooges, you know?
Well, they turned it was like a every day at the office type thing. It's just like, oh, you know, Margaret made that hood for you. Mine doesn't fit very well. And it was just like this, in this weird movie. And it was such a, like, if you really think about it, Django was kind of a tonal mix match, like a mixed bag, because it's so heart-wrenching and it's so serious in the subject matter, of course, is super serious. But then you have these crazy little moments that are just absolutely hilarious, and it is that nice wave of emotions.
Yeah, it has a ton of great comedy, a ton of great action, and just like off-the-wall ridiculous action too. Like there's a scene towards the end when he storms the house and he's killing everybody, and he's standing on the balcony. He shoots directly down at, I believe, is a woman. And when she gets shot, she flies immediately left and into the next room. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense at all, but it looks amazing.
The violence is so over the top. And so I think the violence is more prominent in this than any other Tarantino film.
Probably, I'd put it here, and Inglourious Bastards probably have similar violence, but this one definitely took it up just a notch.
Well, it's like you see, you know, you and I have been watching movies since we've been born, and you see people get shot in movies, and most of the time you see like a puff up of their shirt or whatever. You see a hole. Sometimes you get some blood, or sometimes you get a lot of blood if you're watching RoboCop. But every bullet hole in this looks so devastating.
For sure. Every bullet hole is like, the size of a baseball.
Because it's true though, because there are these old school like muskets and shit. Right. So they're shooting with like literal hand cannons. So it made sense. But just the reality of it is something that especially Hollywood doesn't show, you know, and I mean, just brutal scenes. The one with the dog eating his buddy and all that, or I don't even remember if it was his buddy, but just another slave, you know, it's just absolutely crazy. And it's another film that Samuel L. Jackson kind of steals the show for a good part of it. It steals the show's kind of maybe too much, because like you said, Leonardo DiCaprio kind of does steal the show in this movie, in my opinion. But Samuel L. Jackson's character is such a disgusting scumbag, and I loved every second that he was on the screen.
Yeah, dude. He's definitely the standout as far as like this movie, for me at least. Like DiCaprio, I've been a fan of his for a long time, but like I find myself being more of a fan of him lately, or at least since Django, kind of like going back and kind of like diving into some of his other stuff.
Sure.
In his early year, like Heartthrob, years. I was never really super into him. I was kind of thought he sucked a lot, but
I don't know, man. I liked him during the Basketball Diaries, the Gilbert Grape days, the Beach, Danny Boyle's The Beach. I've always kind of been a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. He did do some horrible things in like Romeo and Juliet, and then Titanic was, even though it was kind of a masterpiece of its time, he wasn't the best part of it, really. It was just more of a spectacle. But yeah, I just thought that him playing, but he's never this kind of character, and that's, I think, what was so shocking, because he's always this, if not a heartthrob in his later years, he's still kind of a protagonist, so to speak. Right. And him being this slimy, it just felt like it was like that like super nice kid, in high school doing something really bad and being like, him? Really? I don't know.
Yeah. How do you like Samuel Jackson in this movie?
Oh, he was just fantastic. He was a total over the top caricature. I think, if there's a world record, if anyone's tracking this, and I hope no one is, I think Samuel L. Jackson probably holds the world record for saying the N-word.
And the F word, probably both.
Yes, indeed. Again, very quotable movie. Can't say a goddamn word.
All right, should we move on to Tarantino's final film?
Yeah, let's do it.
As of now, final, The Hateful Eight, his also longest film.
Okay.
Coming in just over 3 hours, 3 hours and 7 minutes.
Well, you mentioned spaghetti western.
Yeah, I was so hyped for this because I love Django so much, and I love westerns, and more than anything, I love westerns in the snow, like a lot.
That's a very set, thing.
Yeah, I really, really love westerns. I've been on a western kick probably for like the last 5 or 6 years. I've been watching a shitload of westerns.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie it's more than just a western, though. This is like 8 people in a room talking for 3 hours. This is a play, is what this is. This is
Clue. It's Clue.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But you could take this, and I think that they plan to. But you can take this and put it just live, like on stage, like make this up. Oh. This is theater. This is a play.
I would love to see that.
I was engaged from the beginning to the end. This movie does not feel like 3 hours to me. And it has a fantastic, twist in the end, but it's set up so beautifully. It's shot just it's absolutely gorgeous, even though it is just 8 people in a room for the whole time. Like, it is a gorgeous film to look at. And they even have when they showed this at the IMAX theater, they had like an intermission, like little break in between it because it was so long, and everybody got little booklets that were actually like going to a play. Like, here's your little what do you call it?
Your program. Yeah.
And I have one of those. I didn't get to go to the IMAX to see it, but my friends gave me one of theirs. But
that's some good friends. This to me felt like a sequel to Reservoir Dogs, even though that doesn't make sense at all. It just felt like that. Yeah, like this is Reservoir Dogs in this setting, and that's why I loved it so much. And I was talking to people on Twitter, again asking, what was their favorite, what was their least favorite, and I got a lot of I liked everything, but I hated Hateful Eight, and I'm just like, really? It's just fantastic. It's that return to an ensemble Tarantino thing, and like you said, it's blocked like a stage play. What's his name? William Goggins.
Yeah,
wherever Tarantino dug him up from, he is a gem in this movie.
Yeah, it's Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
Walton Goggins is actually like you pay attention to some Walton Goggins. He's in a lot of stuff, and he's great in everything.
Yeah.
He's just like really good in a lot of stuff, but he's always a character that kind of goes unnoticed. Like, he's in like the Machete movies and Django and there's one in particular I can't think of that he's really good at, but he kind of just pops in. He's in a lot of TV. If you watch like Criminal Minds and stuff like that, like he pops in a lot of that stuff. But he's always really, really good. But he's kind of one of those actors that kind of just like, he's such a great character actor that you don't recognize him.
And talk about not recognizing. I mean, you can't not recognize. At least I couldn't recognize Tim Roth in this at all. Like, this is such an un-Tim Roth kind of character that he played.
For
in this.
Sure.
Channing Tatum, I guess we could say that's a cameo. I mean,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Definitely a cameo, even though he's like the guy they're kind of looking for the whole time. Right?
Right. Yeah. Again, another Samuel L. Jackson thing. Forever that image of him talking about what he did with Bruce Dern's son. It's just so haunting. Okay, so I watched this. I didn't know how brutal it was going to be, but I really should have, because I think I just watched Django, and this kind of puts the timeline into perspective when I watch these movies, because I remember just watching Django, and it was right before Hateful Eight came out, and I was watching, or at least released, on VOD or whatever at home, and so I was watching Hateful Eight, and I think my wife was at work, and I had all the kids, and I just have it on in the background, and then it gets to that scene. And then it gets to the scene where Kurt Russell's vomiting blood into what's-her-face's mouth. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll turn this off and watch this when the kids go to bed. Oh, man. Jennifer Jason Leigh, talk about a resurgence for her. Oh, my God. She was incredible in this film.
Yeah, she is. She's incredible in this film. Man, I don't know. For like being such a small cast of people, she, like, a small cast of amazing people, like Kurt Russell, like, just so awesome. I mean, I think we kind of blew over the fact that he's been in this movie. Did we even talk about Kurt Russell?
We did not talk about Kurt Russell.
but like, to be like holding her own, like, with Kurt Russell and Samuel L. Jackson, and like for her to really stand out amongst like this amazing cast too, and just like, I don't know, like, this is what Tarantino brings out of people, I feel like.
And again, like Reservoir Dogs, where there's no clear protagonist. There are, you're kind of rooting for people throughout, like rooting for your favorite jerk, but Kurt Russell is like the kind of most protagonistic, stereotypical, because he is a lawman, he's the hangman, but he's punching Jennifer Jason Leigh in the mouth like anytime she says anything. It's absolutely crazy, the way that Tarantino could play on people's emotions and people's tones, and he's just absolutely a master as far as that goes. So you want to bring Rebekah back in? We could talk about some of Tarantino's other projects that he was involved in.
I can try and do that. Yep, I got it.
And while she's making her way back in, anything else you want to say about, just Hateful Eight and Tarantino as a whole?
Just as a whole, I mean, I put Hateful Eight like right up in the top tier of, like, just his best movies, but I can understand on that movie if people don't like it. Like, I can. It's a long ass movie. Like, yeah. Like it's just a lot. Like, that's where I.
That wasn't creepy at all.
Like, I've seen the movie twice. But it's such a great movie that when I go to rewatch it, I'm like, I'm always just like, oh, this one's 3 hours long. Like, do I want to? Like, do I want to set aside that time?
Right. Well, you could pick out segments where it's very clippy, because like you said, it is so long, but it does have very pronounced acts, like a play. It has an act 1, act 2, act 3, and you could kind of skip around to whatever kind of mood you're in. If you're in the mood to watch people sitting in a room and all this kind of back and forth, great dialogue between great legendary actors, there's that for you. If you want to watch people just brutal shoot each other and kind of more of like along the lines of a Reservoir Dogs, there's that too. So yeah, let's there's a couple of films, and welcome back, Rebekah, but there's a couple of films on Tarantino's docket that he did not direct, but he was extremely involved in as far as acting and writing goes. So do you have that list?
Well, let's start off with a movie that he did have some directing in, and that's Four Rooms. I think is a good one to start with.
Oh, good.
I haven't seen this movie. Becca really likes it a lot.
Oh, it's so good. That was, and I always thought that it was a Tarantino film. And okay, so as much as Kill Bill was like the first one, Pulp Fiction was the second, Jackie Brown or Four Rooms was either my like third. I don't quite remember, but it was like right up there, like one of the first ones that I saw. And it's so great with Tim Roth as the bellboy or whatever they call it.
The doorman.
The doorman.
Yeah.
And total Tim Roth in it. Like, it's just him like overplaying it, but like in a very like nervous like way. I don't know how to explain it, but you have like all these different stories with these different rooms, and oh, it's so great. It's really good.
I haven't seen it in so long, and I even forgot the segment that he directed, because I just remember, I mean, I saw it when I was so young. I saw it with my older sister, who will come on the show every once in a while. But I remember Madonna was in it. But I mean, I remember it being a real fun movie, and it did have like pronounced, like, you knew the Tarantino part. I remember that, and you knew, which person directed what. I wish I had more memories about it. What's that?
His segment's called The Man from Hollywood.
Yeah, I unfortunately
Robert Rodriguez also as one of the directors in it too.
A frequent collaborator,
because I love when they collaborate on pretty much everything.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What else?
The next movie I've not seen, and Dan's been giving me a lot of shit for.
And we're gonna cosplay. We're gonna watch it first, and then we're gonna cosplay.
You haven't seen it either?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Well, once he showed me the picture of that one guy with the gold teeth and like the scar, that looked really, really, really
Gary
familiar.
Can we talk about the movie first? It's True Romance.
I have not seen it either.
You haven't seen it? What are we talking about this movie for?
I think I've seen this.
Look up a picture of Gary Oldman from True
ago.
Romance, and it's going to blow your mind, because that makes me want to watch the movie, just that image alone. He plays like a Rastafarian dude.
Well, the best part of True Romance, and this is coming from someone that's never seen it, was Michael Rappaport's interview on Collider, like dropping all the F-bombs all the time, kind of talking about this movie. That's my favorite memory about True Romance, because I never saw it.
Yeah, I hear that Brad Pitt's a great stoner in it, but that's
yeah.
What I got. Moving on from that, we got Natural Born Killers, which is an awesome movie. I love this movie.
He wrote this?
Huh?
He wrote this?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he wrote the story. Screenplay by David Valals. I don't know. But yeah, he wrote Natural Born Killers. If you watch it now, like with that in your mind, you're like, oh, of course he did. Like, this is a Tarantino movie. I love this movie. Like, Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, freaking Robert Downey Jr. is awesome in this.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I probably watched at way too young of an age, and has stuck with me. Like, there are frames of this movie that have haunted me my whole life. And I watched this movie for the first time as an adult, like just like 3 or 4 years ago, and it just blew my mind. I was like, God, this is such a Tarantino movie, like all over it.
Who was it? Oliver Stone that directed this film, or? Yeah. Oh man, maybe we got to do an Oliver Stone, because Natural Born. Oh, for sure. This movie, like you said, just huge, just blew up everything when it came out. It took everyone by storm. Maybe we'll save it a little bit. So let's move on down the road. All
right. Well, I got one more on this list, and that's From Dusk Till Dawn. And I gotta say that in my top 5 favorite movies of all time, From Dusk Till Dawn is in that list. I don't honestly know. This might actually be my introduction to Tarantino. Like, I may have watched this before I watched Reservoir Dogs, like within the same year, probably.
Sure.
But I think so. I think I did. I think that this is I loved this movie before I went for crime movies or for horror movies, and this is a crime movie that becomes a horror movie, and there's like the 2 favorite things that I work in most of the time today. And I love it so much.
I just love the brothers and their little relationship that they have going on, and being completely different criminals, and like the older brother just being like, what is wrong with you? Still like showing him love and trying to like help him through what a true like good criminal is. And I love the family, and I love like the dad's like backstory and his battle with faith, and like the mom not being around anymore. And yeah, it's really good.
And Sex Machine. I mean, seriously.
And Sex Machine. You're really turning into a sweet ass movie. It's a fucking monster movie with a dick with a for a dick. And it's awesome.
This is I mean, you guys said it. It's the tale of two movies, and both movies were absolutely fantastic. George Clooney was so great in this film. Cheech Marin in all the roles.
He plays three characters. Yeah.
He plays three characters, and especially like the one that's the border patrol, where he's just like so muted, so kind of for Cheech. Yeah, he's super creepy, but it's just like it's weird seeing Cheech Marin just talk like a normal person.
Right.
But oh my God, yeah, like you said, Harvey Keitel, the entire family, Juliette Lewis is great, and it's brutal. Everyone dies. It's your spoiler alert. This was Salma Hayek's breakout role, and she didn't say a goddamn word.
Right? Yeah, Salma Hayek. Danny Trejo's in this movie. I think Danny Trejo is the only character that's in every From Dusk Till Dawn movie, but this is the only one worth watching. But I'm pretty sure his character dies in all of them, and he just keeps coming back.
The first 5 minutes of Dusk Till Dawn 2 is great because it has Bruce Campbell in it.
Oh, you know what? I talk a lot of shit about the rest of the From Dusk Till Dawn movies. I've never seen any of them. I've just watched the first one.
I turned it off after he was dead. Spoiler alert.
Have you watched the TV series?
No, I did not.
The first season, I've only seen the first season. Not bad. It's actually pretty good.
Really?
It suffers from beautiful people syndrome. Like everybody in the movie is just absolutely gorgeous, or everybody in the show.
Yeah, and everyone in this movie is absolutely not. Everyone's, I mean, besides Salma Hayek, and that's why maybe she literally is a goddess in this movie. There's not a flaw on her at all, even when she turns into a vampire. But it's just like she's just absolutely captivating, breathtaking. She doesn't have to say anything. But Quentin Tarantino, I mean, for the last hour and a half, we've talked about his producing, his writing, and his directing, but his acting chops are very underrated, especially in this film.
Completely agree. Like, and I think people just automatically like, oh, he's not, like, he just has these small cameos because he can't act. Well, watch From Dusk Till Dawn because he obviously can. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, his character's super creepy.
Yeah, like one of the parts that I think like really shows his good acting skills is like when he's talking to what's her face. He's like, yeah, he's like, were you being serious about what you said earlier?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
He plays a predator very well.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. All right. Well, and so that's that. And so what's his upcoming projects?
His upcoming project is the Charles Manson movie.
Oh God, yeah.
Wasn't that like a Star Trek thing too?
The Star Trek thing isn't actually. We did a show about that.
We did. Yeah, we did a whole "Is this news about this?" Glad that you're a viewer, Rebekah. But no, yeah, we did that. So it turned out that he did not. He was not selected for the role. It went to someone else. But it would have been interesting.
By him.
Okay, well,
it might be written by him, but he probably won't direct. But the Charles Manson movie is called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay, yeah, and is it what was it? Jake Gyllenhaal is going to play Charles Manson?
That is not officially announced, I don't think.
Okay,
but it's got Margot Robbie, Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, James Marsden.
No, not Michael Madsen.
About might be actually Charles Manson in it.
Oh, wow.
But it's got Emile Hirsch, Kurt Russell. It's got there's a lot of people being attached to this movie. So
we don't see Emile Hirsch as much as I'd like anymore.
Dude, I love him.
I do too. Yeah. So, I mean, just to close out, just to kind of put lipstick on the pig, so to speak, Quentin Tarantino, obviously you just heard from three very passionate fans, might be, if not my favorite director, one of my favorite directors for sure. Probably is my favorite director, between him and David Fincher. He's, like Rebekah said, got me into loving film. Just this, and it's not even like you watch a movie like Jackie Brown and it has like fade cuts and all this stuff. It's almost, him and Kevin Smith do have some similar style tones where it's not just like crazy eye candy. It's not eyegasms like a Tim Burton or Russo brothers or anything like that, but it has its own sense of style. And it's just very important that these kind of films are still being made to this day. So any closing thoughts from you guys about Mr. Tarantino?
I pretty much agree with you, man. I think Tarantino's definitely my favorite director. I mean, I'm always excited when he's got something coming out. I agree. Like, it's hard to say he's my favorite because I love directors like David Fincher so much too. And David Fincher, I think I discovered more recently in life about just how much I really love David Fincher. Like, if we can ever do a show about David Fincher, maybe you'll get to find out how much I love him.
That's the show that we don't talk about. That shit happens when we talk about David Fincher show.
That's really funny. That's a Fight Club reference.
Yeah.
Fight Club joke without being a Fight Club joke. But no, I think Tarantino's definitely, like, I think he's my favorite director, and I'm always excited when he comes out with something new. And I'm sad that he really only wants to do 10 movies, but I'm also excited that he wants to exit on a good note, just get the hell out. So
I respect him for wanting to do that, because he wants to be a legend, with I think he already is, but as much as I don't want him to stop at 10, right? He's stopping at 10.
That's what he keeps saying, but we'll see what happens when money gets involved.
But I respect him for wanting to do that, and then, you know, he'll still write. I mean, he's not going to be out of it forever, but as much as I haven't seen those 2 movies, he is my favorite director and just holds a special place in my heart. So Tarantino, if you're watching this,
of course he is.
I want to be your Uma Thurman.
There you go.
I mean,
he is probably the second of the 2 viewers we have left, but it was a long show.
The 2
so
viewers we have left are me and you.
Yeah. I do want to thank the chat, because there was some real fun interaction with a lot of awesome people in there. Yeah, and like I said, it is a long show, but I do want to thank my special guest, the Naughty Nelly. I had some twins tonight, and they were pretty good for a golden ale. You know, I'm not too keen on golden ales, anything that's not a stout or an IPA, but this was very drinkable. I would have drinking a third if I had it from the fridge, but I didn't want to get up and be rude. So I'm going to give this one probably a 3.5. Seems low, but I have high expectations. Rebekah, why don't you talk about your tasty beverage?
Well, I finished it.
That's the rating right there, right?
Yeah, it's really good. I'm as much as Pabst Blue Ribbon is okay. That's right. Like beers have more of a bite to it and more.
Oh, you shut your face.
But I'm not a beer connoisseur like you, Jonathan. So I really don't know the proper things. I don't know why I like it. I just like it.
You like it because it's 312 and it's a wheat ale and it's delicious and it comes from Chicago.
That's it.
That's it. Very good.
312 used to be like one of my favorite beers. I actually used to drink it all the time. But
and the Pabst Blue Ribbon,
always great. Definitely, you know, if you just need to pick up a 6-pack on your way home, it's you know, $5.95. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God, Halcyon Bombadil says drink an absinthe Sazerac. As soon as I look that up, I will start doing that. So yeah, thank you guys, Rebekah and Tony. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram, and that's about it. I really don't do much on my Facebook page anymore, and I don't do a whole lot on my YouTube channel anymore. However, I do want to pick it up. I do want to pick it up again. I've had some major life changes, good and bad, and I really want to get back to it because this passion is fiery and I just want to let it out. But Instagram, the Herb Chick. So go check that stuff out.
Yeah. You can follow us at RAD Entertain on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that jazz. YouTube.com/RAD Entertainment. We'll have a review later this week for The Incredibles 2. We'll do that.
Awesome. So excited for that movie. And I mean, I thank you, RAD Entertainment, for coming back on. Always love having you. While you guys are in a transition, getting content back on, you know, you always have a home right here whenever and wherever you would like to join. You can find me at Jon Dunning on Facebook and Instagram, but more importantly, the thing that I do the most of is Twitter. You can find me at Orzov Dunn. Yes, it's a Magic the Gathering reference. I'm a big giant dork. But yes, thank you, Rad World, Rebekah, and Tony for joining us. And we will see you next week, which I'm very pleased to announce later in the week who the director's cut is for next week. And then after that one, we might be taking a little break. But yeah, super pumped. And I think Tony might be pumped as well for next week.
I'm pretty excited about it.
All right. Yeah. So all the teases, all the tasty morsels. We'll see you guys next week for another director's cut.